All right. Well, I'd like to issue a warm welcome to everyone joining us today for the webinar, How to Win Fans for Your Brand. And whether you're joining us from your office, from your dining room table, from your garden with a strong Wi-Fi signal, once again, welcome, and we're really glad to have you here. Now, over the next hour, we'll be speaking on various topics when it comes to winning fans for your brand. But here is just a brief agenda of some of the main points we'll be talking through. So the first part, I'll briefly introduce shortly the speakers for today's webinar. We'll talk about the business benefit of winning fans, and we'll then go through how winning fans relies on a great brief. We'll then go into Distillery's approach to winning fans before we wrap up with talking about metrics, how metrics matter for fandom. And we'll make sure to leave some time at the end for Q&A. So if you want to ask a question, there is a Q&A button near the bottom of your screen, which you'll be able to ask some questions. So let us begin. So why don't we start with a few introductions, because we have an array of talented speakers that will talk you through the various bits of fandom. So I am Peter. I am the senior strategist here at Distillery. We are also joined by Tim Hughes, who is founder and chief marketing officer of The Brief Doctor. We also have joining us Sam, who is our head of copy at Distillery. We have Steve, who is our MD, Master Distiller at Distillery. And finally, we have Louis, who is our social strategist when it comes to all things social. So again, a vast array of experience here to talk you through fandom. Now, before we begin, I just want to talk to you a bit about who we are. Who is Distillery? Well, we are an agile and forward-thinking international content studio that uses data and insight to maximize the success of your content. Now, we really love the challenge of winning new fans for brands with targeted content strategies. And well, we like to think of ourselves as distillers of great ideas to create content for brands to find, connect, engage, and really entertain your audience wherever they are. And for us at Distillery, collaboration is really key. It's, we focus on strategy, and it's really at the heart of everything we do. Now, when it comes to fans, now we've won fans for a host of brands. So from tech companies like Google to FMCGs to charities. So quite an array of industries that we've worked with. For example, we worked with Lillette's. With Lillette's, we focused on a social first campaign for them to create awareness about plastic pollution among younger users of tampons. We've also worked with Eric Landard. We helped build a thriving baking community really based on search trends and a collaboration strategy. We worked with Eric to create and develop a YouTube channel from scratch with millions of views, tens of thousands of subscribers, bringing weekly video tutorials across social platforms, also focused on branded content partnerships with brands like P&O and Silver Spoon. And also we've worked with Oxfam. Our Stop the Cracks campaign was created to raise awareness and really encourage people to follow and share to really influence their local governments. So just a brief overview of brands we've worked with when it comes to fandom. Now, I will now hand it over to Sam, who is our head of copy. So Sam, yep.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. So I'm going to walk you guys through the business benefits as we find them for winning fans. So what's the big deal about fandom? Why are we so obsessed with it? Why is it so important for brands? So audiences versus fans, what's the difference and why does it matter? We feel that there's a very strong difference between audience and fans. An audience is people that we define as being, you know, they're seeing your messages, they have an understanding of your brand maybe, and they're interested. Maybe they even buy your products, that's great. But a fan is someone who's activated to then go on and spread the word to everybody. The idea of fandom is deeply rooted in the human psyche, as it were. We all want to display an individual personality, and at the same time, there's that kind of conflicting feeling of wanting to find your tribe. So I've got a few tribes on this slide here. You might be part of one of those tribes. We've got Apple fanboys, we've got Trekkies, we've got Beyonce fans, and over to the right there, BTS, the Korean boy band, screaming fans. Let's move to the next slide. So we as humans buy things that reflect our values, our cultural past, our own individual and unique personalities. And that's how we build that sense of stuff, really, through the sense of self, through the stuff that we buy, collect, listen to, watch, the games we play, the shows, TV shows and movies that we fangirl or boy over, and basically the stuff that we brag about. So because of all that, when fans get together to celebrate their shared love of something, we call it a fandom. And because a fandom is such an important way for people to strengthen their sense of identity and their sense of self, you know, who they are inside, it's a very powerful place for a brand to be. So let's have a look at a couple of interesting case studies. Obviously, this is all over the all across industries. It cuts across. We're going to focus on just two case studies, and they're not going to be brand new to you. All of us, apart from being marketers or people working on brands, we are also consumers. So here's the first one: from tech company to a champion of design. This is what Apple achieved by building its brand around a fandom. It defies the status quo through simple, functional design. We all know that. But by placing that ideology at the heart of its messaging, Apple has attracted fans who appreciate sleek, clever design thinking. So it's beyond just enjoying a product, it's enjoying a philosophy, as it were. And fun fact, that has actually led to 52 million iPhones alone, and counting, being sold in less than a decade. I think the number is 8 years. So yeah, let's move on to another industry. Let's look at the fintech zone. So this is Monzo. It's gone from from being just a bank to being a must-have app, and also a must-have card. If any of you have seen that luminous orange card, it's always a great conversation starter. So the challenger bank Monzo here in the UK, it's won 3.2 million fans just in 2020 because of its audience-centric ideas, like the early access golden ticket that, you know, you could sign up for, you could join the waiting list to get one, and then you could have the privilege of inviting a friend as well. That was so successful that they even sold golden tickets on eBay. So again, it's a company that has built its brand around its fans. They even have Q&A sessions with the consumers to really bring those ideas forward and make the customers feel a part of the brand and a part of its growth. Yeah, and they've seen great results from that. So back to you now, in the brand that you guard, you manage, or you market. Do you want your audience to feel a sense of belonging, you know, and ownership? Do you want them to be a part of it? Do you want them to wait anxiously for your next launch? You know, just like the Apple fanboys and girls queuing outside the stores. And do you want your audience to be excited about everything that you do, whether it's a launch or a tweet that you've sent out or an Instagram story. If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then we're here to say that you don't want an audience, you actually want fans. So I'm going to hand over to Tim, who's going to talk about how the brief plays into all of this.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, we up there? Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide. Oh, just a second, start my video. Can you see me now?
We can see it.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's get on and tell you a little bit about what we're talking about today. So my name is Tim Hughes. I run a company called The Brief Doctor, and we're a global creative brand strategy consultancy, except we're not at the moment because we're in lockdown. So we're a crouch end based dining table consultancy. And what we like to talk about is briefs. And briefs are really important because any marketer knows the brief is the place that you capture the emotion that you want to send out to your audience. So lots of people, even great marketeers, get briefs wrong. So we use this phrase a lot. A brief poses a problem that creative seeks to solve. And it starts a conversation with a brand that goes on to create fans. So if we move on to the next slide. Little bit of a delay. This is because we're going from crouch end to France back to the slides. So what is the best thing about fans? The thing that we want to ask you is, what is a fan? A fan is someone who supports you. They've got your back. They're going to work for you. If we go on to the next one. I'll just do a little song and dance in between each one. They sell your products for you. There's no surprise here that I've chosen a little Nike shoe to be the sales point for your fans selling your products. And it seems to be that the sell has got embedded in the Nike swoosh. When you've got a fan, they want to buy your product, but they want to live your brand. On to the next one. Okay, so here we are. Are fans someone who work for free? Well, they do sometimes, and they don't a lot of the time. What you need to do with a fan is you need to nurture them. You need to create a product environment that fills their needs, but also excites them. You want them to work for you. You want them to sell your message. But in order to do that, you need to dangle some carrot. You need to create an environment, a lifestyle, a situation that makes them want to tell your story for you. Next one. Let's just
drum roll, please.
Yeah, drum roll, please. Okay, so let's start with traditional ideas of fans. The easiest one you can start with is sports team. What football team do you support? The great thing about fans within sports team is that you live with them through your whole life. So even if they're doing pathetically badly, you do not switch your sports team. You do not go from one to the other. You stay with them throughout the career. And the whole thing is that you can sell all sorts of products off the back of it. So if you think about sports, you can sell your tickets to your team. You can sell the sponsorship on your shirt. You can sell that shirt. You can sell apparel. You can sell sports nutrition. There's so many different things that you can get into in that product sector. You're starting to build a tribe around something, but you can build out into different sectors. So you can sell gym membership. You can sell sports nutrition. It's all different things you can tie back into a lifestyle range and then expand your product services. So if you go on to the next one, or this one that we're on now, is what's your tipple? If you have a think about that, we all have a favorite drink. If we go to the pub, what do you order? Is it a Gordon's and tonic? Is it a Slip Smith and something else? Is it a pint of beer? Is it a specific brand of beer? Generally, if you are in the lifestyle of that product or service, it is something that you will always ask for and you will tell your friends the benefits of. Next slide, please. I can keep talking about tipple for a while if you want. Okay, music. Music is a certain culture that brings out a lot in everyone. There's a joke going around at the moment that is the police have been given special powers in coronavirus to shut down groups. The first one they're hoping is Coldplay. Now, I like Coldplay, but you get the idea that you can create a for or against kind of atmosphere with these groups. So if you like a certain sort of music, it also creates an anti-fandom against other types of music, which you can actually use as part of your product and branding service. One of the biggest sectors in the world, we're talking $1.7 trillion worth of business, is the fashion sector. Who are you wearing? It's really important to certain people. Brands are really important. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just talking high-end brands. You can be talking high street fandom. You can be talking very low-end brands. You can be talking very eco brands. If you take it again on from brands, the beauty sector, what have I got down worth as $500 billion a year is the beauty sector. And that ranges from everything from your real eco area to your branded content within that. So you're starting to create lifestyles that you can then sell different products on. If you can cater for a specific target audience within your fan base, and you can connect an emotion to that you can put into the brief, that's when you can start creating a much bigger brand journey that you can start selling affiliate products onto. What can you not live without? So Sam was talking about this earlier, you know, the whole Apple generation. There's also the anti-Apple, the the Android phone community. You can create different whole lifestyle sets around covetable and wantable products. On to the next one. Okay, we're getting here quicker. Where do you shop and what do you buy? So this is a really emotional conversation that you can start having with consumers. So here in the UK, we've got a whole range of stores going from Waitrose, which is your very middle class aspirational store, to Lidl. But what happened a few years ago was that Sainsbury's, which is sort of the just below Waitrose level consumer store, their shoppers started going to the cheaper stores, Aldi and Lidl, and it became a real status symbol to be buying bargains. It was part of the whole austerity Britain. If you can infuse things like that into a brief, you can find out what drives people. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about driving for fans. When we're writing briefs for fans, we're all about driving an emotional response to a story that they will tell. You want fans to be able to interact with your brand, but also sell that story on. Next one, please.
Drum roll, please.
What do you love? Here, look, we're getting the flow of this now, so it's going fine. So what do you love? These are all the different things that in your lifestyle that you can tap into as a brand. You know, there's anything from flower arranging to kite surfing. If you can super target what it is that people like and you can get into their life, then you can also work with your finance department, which is where you get into the sort of the more traditional role of marketing, to offer discounts, to offer upsell, to offer different levels of the consumer experience. On to the next one. We're getting towards the end of these now. So, who's in your family? This is one of the most important for consumers. It's how they live their life, who they're spending their money on, who they have different connections with. On to the next one. Because family isn't just family anymore. It's who's in your tribe. And Sam used the phrase tribe before, which is very interesting, because whatever your interest, whatever your area, whether it's sports, whether it's family, whether it's fashion, you will associate with different people who share your interests. And that is where fandom comes into its own, because you can start sharing with your tribe your product's experience. And that's where it becomes really interesting and valuable to a brand. And this is the most important one, because the best tribe is the cat people tribe. So, you know, the pet retail market is 200 billion globally. So, you know, it's a market that you really have to tap into. What are different people's interests that overlap in such a way that you can take consumers on a journey? And that's what we're about capturing in a brief. It's not about this is the product we've got to sell. It's about this is the emotion and this is the connection that we're trying to get to. Talking a lot with my hands. Next slide. We're now into the theory of it. So this is a really interesting one if you're in the UK. Different things are starting to happen with the COVID lockdown. Every Thursday, people at 8 p.m, people are going outside their houses and clapping. This has now started a whole new fan era of the NHS. Now, whether that takes you into a level of political argument that is, should we be clapping or should we be funding? takes you into another tribe because you're then starting talking to political people about things. So on to our next one. This is where we get into the proper thing. Do we want fans or do we just want customers? This is one of the questions that the sort of CFOs answer. And it's not about either or. It's about taking customers, and bear in mind when we're writing a brief, these could be potential customers. So it's about taking who you think you can sell your product to and creating a deeper, more engaging experience for them. And that is the psychology of when they become fans. We're doing this to increase sales through loyalty and recommendation. We're doing this because we want return visitors, and it's free marketing. On to the next one. If you have a fan, this is when we talk about free marketing. If you have a fan rather than just a customer, it's deeper engagement and they are doing your work for you. So this is the sort of the story arc that we want to get to, that we want to take people who could be potential customers, we want to turn them into fans, and once they've become fans, we want to make them into advocates. And that's what true fandom is. It's advocates of your brand because they tell the story for you. It's not just the individual, although they may be the ones making the primary purchasing decision. So this is the rules for what fans need to get from you as a brand. You need to be pertinent to them, and that needs to be in the way your brand communicates and your advertising happens. Because bear in mind, when we talk about people like Apple, it is their brand and their communication as much as their product that makes them covetable. So you need to be pertinent, you need to be rewarding, and that is where you can get into rewarding in terms of payments, in terms of discounts, in terms of sampling, and you need to be shareable. And that's what we're talking about today with Distillery, is it's about media types that are shareable. On to the next one. We're getting right to the end of this, so don't worry about it now. Talk about, you can kind of jump to the conclusion that when you start talking about these things, everything has to be a really, really trendy product. It doesn't. One of the best people that get recommendations from themselves and from others is Amazon. Love them or loathe them, they have their own algorithm of recommendation that makes you and your friends and your household and your pets and everything get recommendations for the next products. On to the next one. We talked about this at the event before. It can be simple personalization that makes you get involved with the brand. If that's your football player's name on the back of the shirt, if that's this Coke thing, I tried to see if Coke would let you swear on their website. They'll let you put it on, but they won't let you print the bottle out. On to the next one. And this is one that we talked about last time. We talked about with Distillery. This is the Owl of Shame on. I've totally forgotten the name of the
Mr. Owley with Duo the Owl.
Duolingo. This is how you can narrate through fandom when your brand talks directly through you to their personality. Did we have any more slides on that? I think, was that the end? There might be another. Yeah, so another example of, this is my terrible taste in music that you get into. But this is where fandom really lives, is when a brand interacts with you on your own level. This is my Spotify review of the decade. You can see my taste in music is terrible.
It is not terrible.
It is not terrible. It's absolutely perfect. But you can see what we're trying to capture in a brief is that our brand understands us, our brand likes us, our brand has a conversation with us. Therefore, we are more likely to become a fan. We are then going to become an advocate. And this is the sort of last thing I wanted to tell you on this. It's all about trust, trust, trust. When we're writing a brief, when we're creating a brand story, we want you to love the brand. But in order for you to love the brand, you need to trust the story that you're being told. So you can't sell a shitty product and expect for people to become fans. You have to have a great product and you have to have an empathetic way of communication. So that was a little bit of around the houses story because I didn't have my picture, so I couldn't see myself. So you've got very big hands, Tim. But I wanted to tell you that, you know, this is our foundation value for the brief doctor. We believe that great briefs are the foundation of awesome creative. And you only get awesome creative if you understand the consumer. And if you understand the consumer and you tell that story through your brief, then they become fans, then they become advocates. And that, in a round the houses way, with very jazz hands, is the end of our story.
Thanks, Tim. So I think we are now handing it over to Steve. Steve, on to you.
Steve.
Amazing. Thanks, Tim. I'm going to try and do some jazz hands myself. But I think, you know, that really feeds into, you know, Distillery's approach really to winning fans for brands, because I'm going to talk through our fandom matrix, because, you know, we've worked with a whole range of brands, and we've developed our fandom matrix over time to help brands really connect with audiences on that deeper level, much like you were talking about, Tim. You know, we're a content studio, and our fandom matrix, you know, really facilitates ideation sessions to blend the audience insights, the content strategy, and the creativity. You know, once we've identified a brand's objectives and challenges, opportunities, we've really nailed that brief. That really acts as an umbrella as we deep dive into a specific fan type. So this isn't just a set of pretty pictures and, well, pretty objects, some nice shapes. It actually performs a really powerful role in our ideation. So I'm going to talk through it now. So at the top here, we've got our fan type. Once we've really understood, once we've segmented the different fans that a brand is going after, that really acts as that umbrella at the top level. Moving down, we work through our 3 pillars. So we map out the fan type's beliefs, the fan type's values, and their interests. So what this does is this helps us really ensure that we're aligned on what really will connect and engage this specific type of fan, primarily online. So once we've mapped out those pillars, the beliefs, the values, and the interests, we then funnel through our content fundamentals. So we have 10 fundamentals that really act as the tools that we use to shape specific types of content. So these fundamentals include consistency, authenticity, narrative and journey, things around early access, meaningful collaborations. We look at one-to-one conversations, interactivity, personalization, very similar to what Tim was looking at on Amazon. We look at gratitude, and our final fundamental is around targeting. So when we work through the fan type, we understand our pillars, and we work through these fundamentals. So this is a really powerful tool. So at the bottom of, in the red box, we come up with a bunch of really great ideas that really connect and engage with that specific fan type. And so during our workshops, this is one of the tools that Distillery uses in our fandom workshops. We will work with a brand to use this tool to bring to life a whole range of ideas that we can then start looking at bringing to life in a cohesive way in a content strategy. And it's not just about, you know, a lot of great ideas that are grounded in insight and strategy. You know, we're also all about the data. So I'm going to hand over to Louis now, who is our social strategist, to talk through our own fandom metrics.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I don't know if I'm trying to get the video on, but it's not working. So I'll start right away. Yeah, the metrics are very important for fandom and for identifying your fans. Because a lot of agencies might give you, you know, amazing numbers for a campaign, but are they really relevant is the question. So yeah, you want to not only identify your audience, but also your community, and most importantly, here your fans. All right, I got the little thing. Here I am. Welcome everybody. So if we, yeah, that just a little meme here to start. That one follower who likes everything you post, that's the one you want to talk to, because he or she will be the one sharing your content, and we'll see why that's very important. So if we move on to the next slide. That is the classic formula here that you will see everywhere about what's an engagement rate. Engagement rate will be, you know, the #1 thing that you want to look at. But so it's engagement divided by impressions times 100, and then you get a percentage, and the higher the better. But fandom is not only about engagement rate, it's about engagement, but also conversion. And what we do here at Distillery is we break down these engagements that are usually, you know, like, comment, and share. And we weigh them. So that's where we get a better idea on how to optimize better the campaigns, whether it's on media spend or what creatives works better, because you've got different objectives, you know, according to your marketing funnel. Do you want to engage? Do you want to brand awareness? Do you want conversions? So the metrics shouldn't be always the same in that matter. So the first one will be the love rate. This is calculating basically the likes, and so we would weigh the likes more than other interactions. So yeah, who is your content appreciated? Is your content appreciated to its value? We measure the likes, and that is really to get an idea of the brand love that you get, or to test different creatives and to see what works best, because we're also all about A/B testing and dynamic creatives, and doing, you know, try things out on very quickly to adjust on a daily basis. Now, the talk rate is all about conversation. It's all about engagement when you want to be a conversation starter. So we focus on the comments. And yeah, this is great to see how people react to your content when they want to share their voice about your product, your idea, or your service. So also very valuable metric, where you want to do a bit more manual, you know, you want to research more what people are saying. And finally, the advocacy rate. That is, to me, the most important in this instance where we talk about fandom, because you know, true fans will spread the word. The ones, that's the most valuable action. You know, if someone likes your content to the point of sharing it with their friends and family, well, you've got yourself a fan. So this is the one that we want to measure probably at the end of the campaign, see how it worked. And this is where you can identify the fans and probably retarget some of your content to these people. So this is for basically all types of social content, but, you know, video is king at the moment, whether it's stories or YouTube or any kind of video you're using on social. So we'll dive in a little bit more into the video metrics, and of course that means views, but also the retention rate. And Steve told me to say that retention rate kicks ass. So here it is. And it does, because a view, I don't know if we have a slide after that whilst I explain this, or if no, it's this one. Okay. So a view is usually accounted from the 3-second mark on pretty much every social media platform, apart from YouTube, which is different, you know, because it's 30 seconds, but they're usually longer videos. But when you run an ad, you know, whether it's a video on Facebook, on Instagram, 3 seconds in, you've got yourself a view. But, you know, is that very valuable? It's interesting information, but we're all about fandom, so we want a bit more than that. So the fans will be the one who watch, you know, 10 seconds, 25%, 50%, or all the way through. And Facebook allows you to identify those people. So, you know, it's really important to create your custom audiences, buckets of people, you know, so you can retarget different messaging to those who are really highly engaged with your video, who watch the whole story, everything that you have to say about your service or your product, and then target them with probably a conversion message right away, or those who watched a little bit of it and then they need a little bit more of a push. So really identifying those different segments allows us to have the flexibility to engage, you know, with casual to super fans with different types of content. So that's what we do here at Distillery, and we're really careful about these different communities within your audience, and not just say, oh, well, that's your engagement rate or your view rate, and say, okay, how many people actually watched the video all the way through? That's the important bit. And also it allows you to actually rearrange your creative, because you've probably been told, okay, the main message needs to be in the first 3 seconds, and that's completely right. But you never run an ad that's 3 seconds long. So you need to make sure, you need to know what people know about your product or your service. So that's it. That's about retention rates rather than views. So this is why it's always important to know the metrics that you're going to look at before launching a campaign, because it's not necessarily the obvious one to say, okay, I want that many views. A view can be very actually low quality. It could be someone that literally scrolled through without the sound, knows nothing about your brand, and then you don't want to pay attention to these people, because it would be a waste of money for the rest of your campaign. That's it for me today. Thank you very much. And I'm handing back to Peter, I think, for the Q&A now.
Yep, thank you, Louis, and thank you to all the lovely speakers, Tim, Steve, Sam, and Louis. So we do have a few minutes for Q&A. So there should be a Q&A button near the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, pop that in. And while we are waiting, just want to remind everyone that if you want some more information, you could visit our website at wearedistillery.co. You could also follow us on our socials at wearedistillery. And please contact us if you're interested in talking more about these online fan workshops. We're happy to give some more information and go a bit more in depth on what your fan challenges are. Also want you to make sure to download our brand new podcast, downloadable wherever your favorite podcasts are. It's available at the Apple Store. It's called Distillery Sessions.
Not only Apple,
so while
Spotify.
we are waiting for, oh, sorry. All right. So,
I think Louis was just jumping in there to say that the podcast is also available on Spotify. Love the plug. Love the plug. There is a. Sorry, Peter.
Oh no, sorry. Go on, Steve.
There is one question that's popped up around conversion. Is fans and fandom more about selling products or brand love? I wonder if that's a question for Tim.
It needs to fundamentally be about selling products, because that's what you're in the industry for. You need to have a return on investment, but there's no harm in doing both. So I believe strongly, if you get the brand love there, you will sell more products. But yeah, you fundamentally, every dollar you spend of marketing money needs to have a return on investment. Is that the response?
Yeah. No, I think that's very much feeds into our Distillery held an event all around fandom, and back when you were allowed to hold events in real life, and that was late last year, and Jack from Monzo was very much talking about brand love, then spilling over into actually that conversion piece, and people really being those advocates of your brand, more and more people signing up to Monzo.
But it does go back to the point that, do you want a consumer to come in once and buy a product once, or do you want them to return? And so when you say you're spending money against it, if you sell them brand love as well as the product, they will come back. So it is, every time you are then spending money on that individual consumer, it is a much smaller amount of money. It's so much easier to retain a customer than it is to get a new one. Which is what you go back and tell your CFO.
Yeah, love it. And in our fandom matrix, it's something we talk a lot about. Those two pillars around beliefs and values. And when you really understand what your fans really believe in and what they really value, that gives you a really strong foundation for building that momentum and that return business.
And I think that's what you talked about when you said about about your matrix is when people write. So going back to the brief writing thing, when people write briefs, they write it for one silo. But what we're talking about here is you can have a sports person that likes perfume, that likes fashion, and when you matrix their whole life together, that's when you work out how they communicate on social media or where you get into the headspace. That's where you get fans, when you can converge multi-disciplines and you can filter in where they are in their life stage, where they are in their career, if they have kids, if they have pets, that's when they go, okay, I trust you and not just trying to sell at me.
Yeah.
All right. We have a question here about, I guess we're all in unprecedented times at the moment. A lot of businesses and companies are, facing challenges where they can't open their stores or having to work online. Are there any brands or companies that you think are doing a great job in engaging their fans right now in this COVID-19 era? I guess this could be open to anyone here of, seeing any good examples of fan engagement right now.
I think, from just jumping in here from my perspective, I think what's really interesting, and I'm not the first person to swear on this webinar, so I can't get in trouble, but I think going the other way, what's really interesting is the shit list on Twitter, and really all the brands and the companies that are behaving badly, that are losing any fans that they had. And now's the time for brands and entrepreneurs and businesses to step up to the mark and do the right thing. And I think we're in unprecedented times. The brands that are getting that wrong, it's being compounded 100 times over what it would ever sort of any backlash they would have had previously.
No, very good point. Tim, Louis, any good examples, bad examples of companies engaging with fans?
Well, do you know what? I would say that the government 5 o'clock everyday meeting is engaging with fans. You've got some people, sometimes they're telling a story that is very factual. Sometimes they're telling barefaced lies, but you've got two different fan bases within there, believing them or not believing them. So it is a dichotomy. It's very challenging times because a lot of the communication that's coming out is not fitting the narrative that is happening. So maybe it will be 6 months before we start seeing the truth. And that's, as Stephen was saying, when brand behavior starts to change, we can see some accusations against some very big companies at the moment, which will either ride it out and say, that wasn't the case, we love you, or they will go bankrupt.
Yeah. I think for me, I've noticed a lot of the arts and cultural institutions are really, leaning heavily on the fans. I think they're quite upfront of saying, as a theater, as a museum, we don't have a lot of funds. If you can, donate your ticket of a play you would have seen, but unfortunately had to be postponed. I think that level of transparency is quite, appreciative of a lot of their fans. And I think you could also see fans of theaters who are engaging with the content online, or who are even creating their own content and having the museums and galleries sharing it on their social channels. So really tapping into the ethos of these organizations to show that we're all in this together. Let's help each other out as we really engage through this time.
And it will come back fourfold for them. The National Theatre is a great example. Andrew Lloyd Webber's been doing it. They're putting one out on a Thursday, which was a big show. And you're already thinking, oh my God, this is amazing production. I've had one free. It goes back to basic sampling. Give them one free. If it's really good, they will come back. So they're not doing themselves, although it's an altruistic thing to do and it's great, it's actually the basis of marketing. Give them a freebie and they'll come back and use it. And you will, because the stuff they're so confident, the stuff they're putting out, and it's good.
Exactly. And I think stepping on from that, I'm sure you've seen examples on social where museums actively encourage people to make their own tableaus of famous paintings. So you'll see someone dressing up a cat as the Mona Lisa, or enacting, Washington crossing the Delaware. So really getting people to be creative as well, but reminding people that, you can see this great art online, or, once this thing is over, to come back to the museum, check out the exhibitions, things like that.
And I think those will be successful brands, because I think one of the things in a crisis is people get really serious. And what people don't need now is brands starting being serious at them. What they need now is brands being fun with them, being fun with their kids, like the Joe Wicks doing the PE lessons at 9 o'clock every morning, or the Jamie Oliver doing the cooking. It's seeing people taking other people's vulnerability and helping them. Those are the people who are going to thrive out of this. It's the people who've been kind, the people who've been funny, the people who've been light touch in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
For me.
Yeah, and it's that adding value piece as well, isn't it? It's we've really noticed that with Eric Landlard. We've been using Instagram TV with Eric to feed out content to his audience, and there's the levels of engagement are so much higher, and the interactivity is incredible. People asking for recipes for lockdown, and the Q&As that are happening. It's really interesting to see how it's a lot of the things that we've been doing anyway during this time are sort of really exploding.
And one of the things I would hope when this ends is that the CFOs of the world don't go, now stop that and go to ROI. They take the lessons and go, actually, what we've learned with this is that is how engagement works. That is the kingdom of fandom, is really engaging with them and asking what they need, and then that becomes intrinsic within your brand. And I do think they will see uplifts in sales afterwards, pretty good uplifts in sales.
Excellent. Let's see, another question interested to get everyone's feedback on is, we've seen examples where a new Marvel film comes out, and the very enthusiastic fans would sometimes say, well, Captain America would not have done X, or Captain Marvel wouldn't have done Y. So how can brands, engage with fans, but still keep that balance of not having fans make all the decisions, to always be in the driver's seat when it comes to creative decision makings or things like that? So, another example, Innocent Smoothies would come out with a specific flavor, and the super fans would, critique the font or the color or things like that. So I guess for Tim or the rest of our panelists, how do you create that balance of a good relationship with fans without giving them to be in the driver's seat all the time?
I like to stir the pot with those ones, because you've always got people who will go to the nth degree, and they actually really enjoy that. They enjoy being pedantic about certain things. So, and actually the Marvel universe is very good at this, because they'll have people going off on one, saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they'll get the director to say, I did, or the writer to say, that's the direction I took it in. And it creates different pockets that is still a fandom. It can be fandom competing against each other. But I think there's always going to be people who are going to, whatever your good intentions, they're going to take it in the wrong direction, but they're going to enjoy doing it. It's not going to stop them consuming it. And it's just the way they are. They're just that sort of bloody person.
And I guess going to that point of how do you explain that there are those type of fans to perhaps people in your organization who may see a negative tweet or a bit of, a minor Twitter storm, and just want to basically close the gates. These fans are not happy. We need to stop everything.
I've worked with a corporate comms person who was very much like that for many, many years. And she always won. And I'm afraid it was one of the things in my career that marketing never got to tell that story. And I really regret it, because every time she shut something down, it really didn't take it in a good direction. So I can't answer that, but I could be very bitter about someone else who did.
Well, Steve, I guess in these workshops, how would you address that sort of that concern?
Yeah, I think what's we've seen, say for example, Lilette. It's one of the case studies that Peter alluded to at the beginning of this session, when we were working on a campaign all around. It's all around women reducing their plastic usage by switching from applicator tampons to non-applicator tampons. And as we were promoting the content, there was the odd negative comment, here or there, and obviously in the reporting, and it came up through our social listening, these comments. And I think it's, one, the content has to hit the right chord. There was no finger pointing in our creative. You must cut down and you must switch product. You must. We were really trying to engage in a conversation, and I think our take on this is that when you're conversing with strangers and you're warming people up and building fandom, then there are plenty of keyboard warriors out there, and it's really about looking at the data again and looking at sort of the comments that are coming in, the volume of comments, negative comments, and balancing those with the positive comments, balancing that again with people who are converting to buy your product. And so I think it's that balance. It's like one or two bad comments on Twitter. Are we going to take down a campaign? No. And it's about really educating a client around what's a Twitter storm and what's not. What to really worry about and what to let go of.
And I think a great example. Oh, go on. Sorry, Louis.
Go for it, Tim.
Like a great example with that earlier this year was the Peloton story, which they did a shit piece of creative. Everyone hated it. They acknowledged it very quickly, and then they came back with better creative. What I am very much against is you use qual and quant research to set your strategy at the start. You don't write your brief off qual and quant, because people tell you what they think you want to know, and you will end up with very, very bad, whatever format you're in, whether it's comms or creative or anything in social. You have to think. And that's why marketers exist. That's why you have clients. They have to decide what is their filter, and then they have to go with something. And you can learn from it for next time, but don't change your campaign halfway through just because you get some bad feedback, because it's just a loud voice. Sorry, Louis, you were talking.
Yeah, and also just to add something on this, I tend to reassure the clients a lot around this. When it's a cultural product, it's a bit different because people feel really connected. If it's a film franchise, we know that Star Wars fans, for example, are very vocal or things like that. But when it's a product or a service, there's really a tendency that, you would get more negative comments than positive comments, just for the simple fact that, if you order some food online and, it's delicious and you're having a great time, you're not going to go back on the app and say, oh, I had an amazing time, thanks for this delicious food. But if it's really rubbish and if it's disgusting, if it's uncooked, then you will actually go. So there's an over-representation of the negative comments, because you will have definitely more tendency, and we all do it. I do it on Twitter. The most interaction I have on Twitter with brands is when I have a complaint to make. I'm like, oh, I didn't receive that on time, or where's my cancellation, or this and that. And I rarely do, and I should, congratulate them for their great work. So it's really something that you have to keep in mind and say, all the people who are satisfied, they probably don't voice it. So, it's just something to keep in mind.
Lovely. Well, I think we are nearly about time for the webinar. We've covered lots of topics, and hopefully that those of you joining, whether from the office or from your garden, have found that useful. Once again, I just want to thank all of our talented speakers, Tim, Sam, Steve, and Louis. Once again, if you do have any questions, please get in touch with us. If you just want to learn more about fandom, want to learn more about fandom workshops, or just want to say hello. Again, we are distillery.co, or follow us on our socials. We are Distillery. once again, thank you very much and have a super day.
Bye.
Thank you very